What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Article 20, the new comedy drama film from Chinese filmmaking legend Zhang Yimou. This was one of the top releases at the Lunar New Year box office in China last month, the number 3 film of that corridor behind YOLO, which I've also reviewed, check that out, as well as Pegasus 2. And this caps Zhang Yimou's 6th feature film in the last 5 years. The guy is in his early 70s, but still absolutely cooking. Just a prolific director, and of course, a legend in the Chinese filmmaking history. We would know that well. I, of course, reviewed his 2 movies last year, Full River Red, which I liked quite a lot, the number 1 Chinese film of the year, and also Under the Light, which I did not like too much at all. So, of course, a new film from Yimou, I was going to check it out, and Article 20 seems to have been, pretty successful, grossing $320 million, primarily in China, seemingly an adult audience with this film. Of course, this is a story about our main character is a prosecutor in the legal system, and basically this is a film with a overall message about the right to self-defense. That's where we wind up. But along the way, it's a long movie, 2 hours, 20 minutes. Along the way, we spend a lot of time handling family and marriage dynamics. A lot of it starts out quite humorous as well. It's ultimately a movie that takes some pretty stark tonal shifts where a lot of this stuff is presented pretty lightly, like as a moment of levity early on, and the movie slowly gets heavier and heavier, leading to this kind of culminating, rousing, perhaps grandstanding scene within a courtroom where our lead character is presenting these kind of idealistic message about interpretation of the law and things like that. Unsurprising to get something like that in a Zhang Yimou movie these days, given, of course, the pro-government lean is going to be in his movie. She's got to take that for what it is. But I do think it's a pretty thought-provoking movie. State involvement aside, I think it's a pretty thought-provoking film about what it says about the right to self-defense and what excessive self-defense could mean. And the title of the film, Article 20, is a reference to Chinese law that is, on the books, but very hard to enforce and rule with in terms of, legal practice. So all that's to say, I think there's some interesting thoughts in the film in terms of where it leads. And I generally enjoyed the movie, but man, I thought it was long. Like, some of it quite drags. Our lead character, Han Ming, this prosecutor, is played by Lei Jiayin, who was also in the other big Lunar New Year movie this year, YOLO. But Han Ming, him and his wife, Li Miaozhen, played by Ma Li, and of course their son as well. But like this family, particularly this spousal dynamic, it starts off quite humorous. The people in my theater were certainly laughing. It's hard for that comedy, of course, to translate all the way because I, of course, have to rely on reading the dub and subtitle in the moment. But it starts off comedic. But I gotta say, like the bickering between, a kind of hapless everyman husband and a headstrong, dedicated wife, like it starts off humorous, but ultimately I was kind of sick of the bickering when we kept getting scene after scene of them fighting and just being completely unable to communicate with each other, despite both of them having good intentions and just completely being not on the same page and wavelength. It got a bit tiring, I have to say. And when you have that kind of dominating so much time in a movie that is really trying to say something a lot bigger and a lot grander, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of plot points with this, including the parent's son and, being involved in stopping a bully, but attacking the bully too strong, and that could affect him because he was doing the right thing, but excessively. And of course, there's, things going on at work for Han and, his colleague, Ling, who is also his ex-girlfriend. His colleague's the very idealistic one who has real, genuine motivation to, fix the legal system and actually serve justice to people. All that's there, right? And then at the end, they actually have our lead character who's been borderline incompetent for most of the movie. He's the one who gets to give the idealistic speech about the law, not the idealistic character who gets sidelined halfway through. There's just a lot to the movie, a lot going on with it. And I think just some of it just lands better than others. I'd be curious what people who, of course, speak Mandarin think of the comedy because they probably translates a lot better to them, of course, in the native language. So, not really too critical of that, given my limitations watching the film. But I did think it was just kind of like overstuffed movie, and if it was a bit more focused on the at home angle or the work angle, I just don't think either one's completely served well enough, given how stuffed the movie is. It's shot in Langtang in China, which was not. It's just kind of like generic, like suburbs and city stuff. Like nothing super engaging to the eye. It definitely does not hold a candle to say Full River Red, which was a period film, of course, and looked fantastic, or even Under the Light, which I forget what city it took place in, but had a more urban, like modern look to it. Article 20, maybe it's more realistic how it's portrayed, to the everyday person, but I wasn't super engaged visually with it. So yeah, in conclusion, I think Article 20, again, it presents pretty interesting like thoughts and takeaways in terms of the law and justice and ethics. I think all that's pretty engaging. And when the movie is on that track, it's pretty interesting. But for me, a lot of the, more personal character dynamic stuff was very up and down just because the movie was so overstuffed. So Zhang Yimou, remain a fan of him. I've watched many of his movies at this point, continue to review his stuff. Looking forward to him continuing to work as prolifically as he is. I don't know what his next movie is. Nothing's been announced officially yet. But given how he's been working, I'm sure we'll get something soon. And when it does come out, I will talk about that. But let me know, how'd you feel about Article 20? Did you think it was more cohesive than I did? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, including YOLO from the Lunar New Year box office alongside Article 20, I also talked about YOLO. Check that out. But for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.